The son of Kenjaku, a twisted man hell-bent on creating the most chaotic and uncontrollable power that mankind has ever seen. The student of Satoru Gojo, one of the most powerful men of all time, with the most murderous, violent, and ruthless man that the Heian era has ever seen, sealed inside of his own body. At least until recently. Fighting the literal embodiment of the world's negative energy while being set for execution the moment that he reaches his full strength. This is Itadori Yuji, and today we find out how strong he actually is. Yuji's first opponent is a grade 2 cursed spirit. A cursed spirit, for those who don't know, is the embodiment of collective negative energy. The more negative energy there is towards one thing or in one place, the stronger the curse that gets made will be. This curse then knocks around Megumi and beats him until he can't move. The same Megumi that's been fighting curses since he was 7 years old, and the same Megumi with a curse technique that Sukuna thinks can beat special grades without him getting any stronger than he was at that point. And Yuji comes in and is a rival to this grade 2 cursed spirit, despite not knowing anything about cursed energy and barely knowing what a curse even was. This draws even more of a reason to respect the comparison between himself and Maki Zenin that Megumi made when he first saw him. Maki Zenin, who in the next 2 arcs was said to be strong enough to easily exercise grade 2 curses with her raw strength. Yuji's next challenge is a finger bear, a special grade cursed spirit that would usually be reserved for Satoru Gojo, the strongest man in existence. Special grades are the strongest curses in the series and are described as running or dying being the only option by a Jichi, which according to this chart should at a bare minimum have strength that's at or way above the level of a grade 1 sorcerer depending on which curse you're talking about, since a sorcerer's strength is usually a match for a curse that's one level above their own ranking, so that they can easily exercise a curse that's the same rank as them. Yuji attacks the curse with his curse tool, but the special grade is too fast for him, cutting his arm off before he even realized what was happening. This curse then bullies and almost kills Yuji, and Yuji has to resort to summoning Sukuna, showing that Yuji was not on those special grade curse levels at that time. After he trains and learns to tap into his own cursed energy, Gojo brings Yuji face to face with Jogo, one of the strongest cursed spirits alive and the strongest of the disaster curses, a team of special grades that stand far above many other special grade curses in the series. Jogo is even stronger than Sukuna at that point, as Gojo recognizes him as stronger than the one-finger Sukuna that he fought in front of Megumi, and three-finger Sukuna, which Mahito confirms after seeing Sukuna's strength for himself. Strength that would cause Mahito to never want to fight Sukuna again. Sukuna even calling Jogo strong by his own standards when fighting him at 75% of his strength, with Sukuna being unrivaled for 600 to 1,000 years. And when Gojo calls Jogo weak, Yuji thinks that Jogo is a monster that's stronger than any curse that Yuji has seen at that point. Gojo, the strongest man on the planet, then trains Yuji to tap into his own cursed energy. Cursed energy can reinforce the body, and Yuji has to train to channel and keep his cursed energy so that it doesn't all leak outside of him and go to waste. This of course makes Yuji even stronger, since now he can amp his power, defense, and speed with cursed energy that he could not use beforehand. Time would pass, and Yuji would later fight Junpei, a user of poisons that rots his enemies' bodies from the inside out. Poisons are one of the most deadly things that a sorcerer can possibly have, as they attack the body on a level that not even reverse curse technique can target without a vast amount of experience and a very high level of precision. Even Gojo, as the strongest of his generation, couldn't stop poisons from entering his impenetrable defense. The Heian era is no exception, as even one of Sukuna's closest aides, who stood side by side with two of the most knowledgeable people in history on anything having to do with cursed energy, fell victim to Choso's poison and would have had serious consequences had he not acted quickly. Yuji gets hit by this poison and shrugs it off, as none of Junpei's toxins have any effect on him. This is because of him having Sukuna living inside of his body as the king of all deadly poisons, which makes him immune to all poison's effects, making Yuji completely unaffected by one of the most deadly attack options in the entire verse. Mahito then kills Junpei and faces off against Yuji himself, having just fought Grade 1 sorcerer Kento Nanami, who was left injured and shaken from Mahito's strength. Mahito is one of the most dangerous curses alive at that point, with all of his attacks revolving around the soul. The soul is a concept in Jujutsu Kaisen that many don't understand, and because of that lack of understanding, they can't defend it with cursed energy either. Mahito can ignore the durability of his enemies and attack their souls directly, and doesn't take serious damage from anyone that doesn't understand the soul either. He's essentially unstoppable for most characters in the series off of that alone, let alone his latent potential that surpasses Jogo when he reaches his prime, and his rapid growth as a special grade that Nanami thinks no one will be able to deal with when he grows to his peak. Yuji then punches and damages Mahito, showing that not only can he compete with special grades, but he's one of the few people that can attack the souls of his opponents with his bare hands. This comes from spending so much time with Sukuna's soul inside of him that he learned how to perceive the soul naturally. This separates Yuji from many others in the cast, as a number of them wouldn't be able to damage Mahito, let alone keep up with him consistently. Yuji then fights Mahito, but Mahito gets the upper hand on it and uses Idol Transfiguration to attack his soul, something that would normally one-shot him from the inside out. But Yuji can ignore this since Sukuna's soul lives inside of him, and Sukuna will attack Mahito on sight if he invades his soul without permission. Sukuna being so strong that when Mahito comes face to face with him, Mahito doesn't even know how to respond. Mahito also corners Yuji and would have beaten him, but with the help of Nanami, who couldn't do any damage in this fight, takes Mahito to a point where he almost kills him with his bare hands, as Yuji after his training has now reached these grade 1 sorcerer special grade cursed spirit levels. Yuji's next stop is the Kyoto exchange event, where he fights Todo, the monster of the Kyoto squad that everyone in the event wanted to avoid fighting. Todo, as a grade 1 sorcerer, has been taking out special grade curses with his bare hands for over a year at this point, and can even damage one of the most durable cursed spirits in the entire series. The curse that Todo can punch dents into, Hanami, was even compared to vengeful spirit Naoya, who took Maki tapping into Toji's strength to beat. Todo is also strong enough to take out the entire Tokyo squad by himself, and Maki doesn't even want to bother fighting him, even with Panda, Nobara, Megumi, and Inumaki by her side. The Tokyo squad as a whole rank anywhere from grade 3 to semi-grade 1, meaning that their strongest member should be at least somewhere in the realm of special grade curses. And even with all their strength put together, they still don't think they can beat Todo, a man that Gojo thinks will pass special grade entirely when reaching his full strength. Yet Yuji can go 4 rounds straight against Todo, where in one of them they're even implied to use everything that they had against each other. This is significant because of 2 different things. 1, Todo is a character that suppresses or amps himself based on the strength of his opponent, so that he can have a better fight and not take all the fun out of it like he did when he was younger, and doesn't see anything lower than a special grade as even being worth the time of using his curse technique, let alone his full ability. And 2, the event doesn't allow either school to kill their opponent, so Todo going all out is something that he wouldn't have done unless he thought Yuji could handle it. In the fight, Todo points out that Yuji has such low cursed energy that he can't even read his movements. This is the same issue that Gojo had with Toji and that Naoya had with Maki. Maki and Toji had 0 cursed energy and used that to their advantage to get the drop on their opponents, and to be harder to keep up with, since sorcerers usually track their opponents' movements by their cursed energy and use that to predict what they'll do next. Todo is one of the most experienced sorcerers in the exchange event at this point, and Yuji can still hang with him, and even pressure him in a one-on-one fight. Todo even says that Yuji has more raw strength in him while barely having any cursed energy. This is the same Todo who can take out 5 grade 1 curses with his bare hands and didn't even think that they were worth going all out against, let alone the fact that he took out a special grade with his raw strength and his curse technique, and can push Megumi to his limits with only 3 attacks. The same Todo that Gakuganji wouldn't make any moves on when Todo said he would kill him if he ordered him around. The same Gakuganji that executed Principal Yaga would not fight Todo or even hint that he wanted to at any point in time. So Yuji scaling above this is very impressive, and says a lot about how strong he can become when he gets even more cursed energy.
のいない時間死して賢者となりなさい
While Yuji and Todo are fighting, the entire Kyoto exchange event is interrupted by an invasion from Mahito, two of Kenjaku's minions, and Hanami, the special grade disaster curse that stands above all others in durability and has a license to kill as he sees fit. Hanami is one of the disaster curses, so on top of being a special grade, he's part of a collective of the most dangerous special grades that both Tokyo and Kyoto have seen at that point. Without even trying, Hanami was able to make Megumi, Inumaki, and Noritoshi look like nothing. Despite Noritoshi as a semi-grade 1 sorcerer having strength that should be approaching special grade levels to begin with. Even when Maki used Playful Cloud that's described as being pure power itself, making her hit far harder than she would normally, and Megumi bringing out Divine Dog Totality, the ultimate fusion of his first two Shikigami, Hanami didn't even see them as being dangerous enough to unwrap its other arm. It's even referenced later in the Culling games against Vengeful Spirit Naoya, where Noritoshi thinks that damaging Hanami was far harder to do than damaging Vengeful Spirit Naoya ever was. The same Vengeful Spirit that took Maki reaching Toji's level to beat. Yet Yuji, when fighting Hanami, can punch dents into its body and even push Hanami to its limits when pairing up with Todo, even blasting the arms off Hanami's body at one point and making a highlight reel of black flashes to pass Nanami's record of 4 in one fight. Attacks that the author said would have instantly killed Jogo when paired with Todo using Playful Cloud, if Yuji and Todo were fast enough to hit him. Before he even fights Hanami, Todo tells him that if he can't use a black flash, he'll stand there and watch Yuji die, putting the pressure on Yuji to land his new technique at all costs, something that he fails at the first time, but eventually does get the hang of. Yuji hits Hanami with a black flash and blows the arms off of its body with one hit, unleashing an attack that takes his regular power and amps it to an exponent of 2.5, when cursed energy is applied within 1/1,000,000th of a second of hitting his enemies. This then awakened him to the true nature of his cursed energy, as Todo describes it as a chef cooking without understanding the ingredients in his kitchen, and then having a full understanding of the value of all his ingredients and the tools that he holds, taking Yuji to a completely different level, with a difference in understanding of cursed energy that's described as heaven and earth compared to those who haven't tapped into it yet, taking him to 120% of his potential and making using cursed energy as easy as breathing air. Even Gojo catches wind of how strong Yuji's grown at this point and is impressed at his rapid growth, not even seeing a reason to butt in when it comes to fighting Hanami once he sees Todo with Yuji and Yuji's new strength. He does fire off a hollow purple later, although he does openly say that Todo and Yuji can handle it. Not too long later, Yuji's next opponents are special grade death paintings, Eiso and Kichizu. Curses that were made from Kenjaku impregnating a woman with a cursed spirit and leaving them for over 100 years to hone their techniques before bringing them all the way to life. Yuji is hit by Eiso and Kichizu's rot technique, which decays the body of anyone that it touches from the inside out, leaving nothing but bones 15 minutes after it hits its target. Yuji not only ignores this since he's immune to all poisons, but can punch straight through Eiso's body 2 times in the same fight. Yuji does this again against Choso, Eiso and Kichizu's older brother, who's arguably even stronger than they are, but takes it a step further. Choso has the same blood manipulation as Noritoshi Kamo, but with none of the weaknesses. As a death painting, he can make his own blood, stop his own bleeding, and hit Yuji with piercing blood. That's too fast for Yuji to react to on his own. That has so much power in it that it can rip through Yuji's arms and kill him if it hits his head with a single strike. And Choso can amp himself even further with Flowing Red Scale that boosts all of his stats, and then stack that bonus on top of itself by using Flowing Red Scale stack. Choso uses Flowing Red Scale to make himself even stronger than he was in base, stabs Yuji, hits him with piercing blood, and boosts himself even further by coating himself in hardened blood that he put around his body. Yet none of this is enough to stop Yuji, and even with this, Yuji almost takes him out in only 3 attacks, to the point where Choso thought risking death by blood clotting was better than Yuji hitting him again a single time. Choso is the same man that can survive attacks against Kenjaku somewhat, and even survived against Naoya Zenin before beating him in 1 attack. Yet Yuji hitting him more than 3 times was something that he refused to let happen under any circumstances. During the fight, Yuji even hits Choso with supernova, his strongest technique that he honed for 150 years, and that no one knows other than Choso himself. This same supernova one-shot Naoya in the same arc, something that only Maki was able to do after tapping into the first part of Toji's power. Naoya being the strongest that the Zenin clan had to offer outside of Maki and Toji, a supreme grade 1 sorcerer, and the best candidate for becoming head of the Zenin clan without the deal between Naobito and Toji, making him a standard of power in the series when coupled with his curse technique that hardly anyone in Tokyo or Kyoto would be able to beat. This isn't even remotely enough to stop Yuji, who not only took a supernova straight to the back, but several other attacks on top of that, with Choso finally beating Yuji by hardening so much blood around himself that Yuji couldn't punch through it, countering Yuji and leaving him on death's door. Yuji gets healed when Sukuna takes over his body and faces off against Mahito again in Shibuya, and Mahito is far stronger than he was before. It's to the point where Mahito spends the first half of the fight chasing him down, and all Yuji can do is run in response. Mahito even throwing out a punch that could have cracked Yuji's skull open had he put his back into it, and having way more moves that he can tap into with his curse technique. Mahito even starts comboing Yuji and hits him with a black flash, and hits Yuji exponentially harder than he normally would have, which pushes Mahito to 120% of his potential. Yuji takes attacks from a special grade Mahito that's even stronger than he was before, and got exponentially stronger for one attack on top of taking himself to 120%, and can keep fighting after getting his head back in the game. Yuji then hits Mahito with a black flash of his own 2 separate times in the same fight, and pushes Mahito to evolve to a state that no one had ever seen, Mahito's instant spirit body of distorted killing. That takes him to 200% of his strength and puts him at a level that transcends anything that he ever was before that point. This Mahito then slams and beats down Yuji, who can't even damage him at this point, and Yuji is almost out of options, with Mahito being on a completely different level than he was before, having no choice but to hit Mahito with a black flash imbued with every ounce of strength that Yuji had. This is the same Yuji that was punching dents into Hanami's body in the exchange event, yet he can't even damage Mahito. This plan works after a distraction from Todo, and Yuji takes out an evolved Mahito that was even stronger than Hanami was in the exchange event, an attack that would have taken out almost everyone that Yuji ever fought at that point had it hit them. After beating Mahito, Yuji gets tracked down by Naoya, who wants to kill him and Megumi to solidify his spot as the next head of the Zenin clan. Naoya is a supreme grade 1 sorcerer and one of the highest ranking sorcerers in the series, having a curse technique that makes him so fast that Nanami can't even see him move, and hitting so hard that he can push Choso to his limits. Naoya is the strongest member of the Zenin clan at this point since Maki's awakening hadn't happened yet, and is one of the most ruthless opponents that Yuji can be up against, being so strong that he can toy with special grade death paintings that Yuji struggled against earlier. Naoya's strong point is his speed, and when it comes to Yuji, there's no exception. Yuji gets blitzed by Naoya without Naoya even using his full strength. This gets interrupted by Yuta, who scares all of them just by showing up, since his cursed energy has a presence that Yuji compares to Gojo himself. Yuta, the man that beat Suguru in his first year with one of the strongest vengeful spirits of all time, and what seems like a limitless pool of cursed energy, challenges Yuji, and vowed to execute him to the Jujutsu higher-ups. Yuta has already beaten one of the strongest sorcerers on the planet at this point, who had with him enough power to wipe out every sorcerer in Japan with certain odds, with an end goal of wiping out every human on the planet, even getting fast enough to blitz Suguru in that same fight, a fight that would make him a legend in both Tokyo and Kyoto as someone that would pass special grade altogether in his prime, who can take on 4 special grade level opponents in Sendai Colony and the second coming of Satoru Gojo, only being passed by him in unique abilities. Yet when Yuta thinks he's about to blitz Yuji, this fails not once, but twice, and they even clash on one occasion, with Yuta never blitzing Yuji the same way he did with Suguru. Although with Yuta being a better fighter, Yuta overpowers him. Yuta explains that he's not even physically strong on his own, but uses his cursed energy to take him to these top tier levels of strength. So much cursed energy that it's even more than Gojo's, and Yuji can't track his movements because of it. The same problem that Todo had against Yuji from Yuji's cursed energy being so low. The two lock blades and Yuji snaps Yuta's katana with one kick, and Yuta takes the wind out of Yuji with the same attack, having Rika put him in a chokehold that Yuji can't break free from without Rika even using her full manifestation, where after the fight, Yuji realizes that Yuta was holding back. Now, what Yuji means by Yuta holding back has been debated about many different times. Some believe that it only means holding back by not bringing out the full Rika and not using all the curse techniques that he keeps inside of her, since Yuta was surprised when he didn't blitz Yuji and then went after him over and over again, yet still wasn't outpacing him, on top of them constantly surging with cursed energy the entire fight, meaning that Yuta was holding back on his abilities and not his raw strength. While others believe that because of Yuta's mission to fake Yuji's execution, he wasn't only holding back on him by not summoning Rika, but by not using his full combat speed as well. Either way, the one thing that this fight did show is that Yuta is levels above Yuji. They are not competing in the same space. In the Culling games, Yuji tracks down Higuruma, a modern-day sorcerer that has his curse technique awakened by Kenjaku's idol transfiguration. Higuruma is thought to be a genius by those around him and reached the same level as a grade 1 sorcerer in only 12 days with no training, and did this by killing everyone that he ran into. Higuruma's domain expansion uses a Shikigami named Judge Man that, when convicting its targets of a crime, can take away any ability that they had to use cursed energy. So Yuji is now fighting a grade 1 sorcerer level opponent who should have strength on par with a special grade cursed spirit, seeing as a sorcerer's real strength is closer to a curse that's 1 grade above their own, effectively placing Yuji in the same situation he was in the beginning of the series, except now with far more training. And Yuji can not only keep up with him, but can also hold his own and even damage Higuruma during their fight, showing that even without any control over his cursed energy, Yuji is now far stronger than he was when he was getting blitzed by special grades, and is continuing to grow the farther that he goes. And then he gets one-shot by Sukuna. Divergent Fist is one of Yuji's most effective techniques. It made its first appearance in his mission with Nanami to track down Mahito in Chapter 20. Divergent Fist was originally caused by a lag in Yuji's cursed energy, where his cursed energy couldn't keep up with his body's natural speed. The technique causes Yuji to hit his opponents 2 times with 1 strike, since first he'll hit them with his fist, and the damage from his cursed energy will come after. This is an effective technique because it catches Yuji's opponents off guard by attacking them a second time when they weren't expecting it, although it being something that Yuji hadn't mastered in the Kyoto exchange event made it ineffective against special grades. Once Yuji masters Divergent Fist in Shibuya, he reaches a level of finesse with it where he can use it to gain an upper hand on Mahito, one of the most dangerous special grades that Yuji had ever seen. One of the most ominous things about Yuji for many of his opponents is Sukuna. Sukuna is another soul that's living inside of Yuji that can take over his body at Yuji's discretion or under very special circumstances. As the strongest from the Heian era, the most violent and chaotic time in Jujutsu history, Sukuna went down in legend as unbeatable and is still considered to be so to this day. The only one thought to be a challenge for him being Gojo himself. It's worth noting that at this point in the story, as of chapter 213, Yuji no longer has Sukuna inside of his body, although it's worth going over what benefits it offered him while he did. Sukuna living inside of Yuji's body offers him immunity to anything that would tamper with his soul, since anything that does would tamper with Sukuna's soul, and Sukuna would attack whatever was invading them on sight. When Yuji swaps with Sukuna against a special grade, the difference in their strength is very clear. This is because Sukuna and Yuji are completely separate people, with different cursed energy pools. And while some may think that Yuji gets stronger every time he eats one of Sukuna's fingers, this is only ever attributed to Sukuna himself, where all of Yuji's strength increases come from his training or from a deeper understanding of his own cursed energy. This is most evident in all of Yuji's fights where Sukuna is even remotely involved. Against a finger bear, Yuji was on the verge of dying while Sukuna handled the finger bear like an insect. Against Choso, Sukuna had secondhand embarrassment for Yuji for losing to what he considered to be an inferior opponent. And against Mahito, who was willing to fight Yuji any day of the week, fighting Sukuna was something that he avoided every single chance that he got. This is even illustrated when looking at Yuji's first impression of Jogo before the exchange event, where he thought that Jogo was a monster stronger than anything that he had ever seen before. and Sukuna treated Jogo like a child when having 75% of his strength. There's also the fact that Jogo never implies that Yuji is a threat to him, but the second that Sukuna comes out, his cursed energy alone is enough to make Jogo fear for his life. Sukuna has several different techniques for slashing apart his enemies, including a domain expansion that's considered to be godlike in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, that will slash apart his enemies until he decides that it shouldn't, and a flame-based technique that can vaporize Maharaga. But Sukuna has no interest in helping Yuji, and would rather watch him die than to do so, and Yuji would rather die than having Sukuna help him, as shown in his conversation with Sukuna, and how he pushed himself near death against Choso and Mahito without ever considering summoning Sukuna a single time. So even when he did have Sukuna, using him as a point of leverage when it comes to winning a fight where Sukuna isn't forced out or forced into action isn't a reliable way of looking at Yuji's character. With all of this considered, with Yuji fighting special grade level opponents for almost his entire career with barely any cursed energy, it's not surprising that Gojo thinks Yuji will become stronger than he is once he actually reaches his full strength. And as he continues to grow, I have no doubt that Yuji will become even stronger as time goes on. Well, that's my Yuji power scale. I expect him to get even stronger by the time the series is finished, but I think that does cover how strong he is until the series ends. I put a lot of research into this, so if you liked the video, hit the like to show me that you appreciate it, and subscribe to the channel since many more of these will be coming out as well. Until then, check out the other power scales that I have on my channel, and have a great day.